All righty. Well, thank you all for coming. We'll call the meeting to order. Ms. Reyes, will you call roll, please?
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Bryant,
Here.
Commissioner Paula,
Here.
Commissioner Porter,
Here.
Lisa Farkas,
Here.
Paul Nelson,
Here.
Isaac Crispin,
Here.
and Joan Farrell.
Here.
Great, thank you very much. And is there any changes to the minutes? Hearing no changes, we will mark that as approval of the minutes. All righty, so we have 2 action items left, correct? Which is our, from Judge Kelly, and we'll hear from her first, please.
I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, so what we have in front of us is.
Thank you for allowing me to go first.
No problem.
And Mr. Chairman, I guess to add to that, so as I've gone back and have been visiting with the judge and as well as the city attorney to make sure that I understand fully what's within our fee structures for the city of Clovis as well as what our fines are. And so when you're reviewing the information that she has handed out to you, you will notice one of the pages that talks about the city of Clovis's penalty assessments. And so that is titled, I have a PDF, City of Clovis Penalty Assessments. And what that shows is the various the violations, traffic violations that are out there, as well as what those amounts are. And so you'll see anywhere from $91 for additional lighting equipment backup lamp, to $71, $111 for careless driving. And so what that is actually is a combination of our court fees plus the assigned fine that is established within our municipal code. And so if you recall, the judge requested that the only court fee that would be increased would be the city court automation fee. That would be going from $6 to the proposed $10. And then the request was to increase our fines across the board by $5. And so those fines are actually found and contained within Chapter 10.2 penalty assessment fees of the city code. And those range from $30 for flashing signals to beyond. There's one for $115 based off of the speed limit and how fast you're going above the speed limit. And so what she's requesting, or what we're discussing, is a $5 increase just across the board to those. If you go back, state statute has certain fees established for traffic violations. Home rule municipalities, or all municipalities, are actually allowed to, underneath the Uniform Traffic Ordinance the city adopts by reference, allows us to establish our own fines. And so we went out and researched, like Hobbs, the city of Hobbs, their same penalty assessments for traffic violations are on average about $10 more than what ours are. And so, like I said, what we're discussing is just a $5 increase across the board on our fines, the $4 increase on our court automation fee, what has been presented to you. The other thing that I learned as going through this process is we also, and she pointed out, that we have a traffic safety fee that goes in, which currently is $6. That helped support our police department from a traffic enforcement standpoint, so that can go towards salaries, that can go towards equipment for our police department. As you're all aware, our costs have gone up across the board, and so that may be a fee that you also would consider increasing for consideration this evening as well. So, which I would say, if we're increasing our city court automation fee, we meet by $4, we may want to increase that traffic safety fee also by $4.
Great. I think the question that we really had was $5 the appropriate amount to raise it, right? I mean, because we haven't raised our traffic fines in quite some time, and that was the question that we had as a committee, was that the appropriate level, the $5. So, anybody have any questions?
I think I have a question for Judge Kelly. Judge, I need some refresher, at least a little bit. Were you concerned at all about increasing the fines too much? Were you, in regards to possibly raising flags with the state, or did you have any concerns along that line at all?
As anything, when things go up, people have to pay more. People don't want to come to the court because they don't want to pay. And that makes perfect sense, you know, but it's because there was some type of violation issue that they have to come see us. For some people, it is hard to have to pay $71, and I understand that. But we have provisions that, you know, they can do payments, they can do community service. There's a way to kind of work around that. My concern was that we didn't get it too cost prohibitive for defendants that came through. But I do believe it, you know, it's been a long time, it needs to be raised.
Great, thank you.
My opinion is that it still needs to sting. If you get a traffic violation, it needs to sting. And so I would propose a $10 increase rather than a $5 increase
For all fines.
across the board.
So do we want to put this in a form of motion? Remember, we have the other two topics on there as well, which is the automation fee going up by $4, as well as the, what was the other one? The traffic
Safety fee.
traffic safety fee potentially going up by $4 as well. So if we can get that all in one motion, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, I'll try to get that. Maybe I get some help.
How about a motion to increase the penalty assessment fees as established in chapter 10.2 of the city code by $10 and increase the city court automation fee from $6 to $10 and to increase the traffic safety fee from $6 to $10. And you can just take that motion if you so choose.
Yes, effective
Correct.
January 1st, 2023.
Does that need to be repeated, or
Just say
You
you're
can
making
just
that
say
motion.
that.
I'll make that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Just to be clear, the new one that we're discussing that's only an increase of $4 then, correct?
Correct.
Okay, understood.
All right. No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I waited for you today. Thank you. All those opposed? Same sign? All right. That one has passed. Thank you, Judge Kelly.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all so much for your time that you spent on this,
Thank you.
for volunteering. I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
You as well.
Thank you so much, Judge.
All right, so our next one is library. Hopefully, everybody had an opportunity to read the information that was sent out on email on this topic, and this is to eliminate the overdue fees, correct?
Right, thank you. Thank you, Revenue Review Committee members. Tonight, I think I made my point very clear 3 weeks ago in the fact that I think having any kind of library fines is a deterrent to having books returned. People see that they have a fine, they're going to keep their book, then when it becomes billed, they're not going to return their book back. The chart that I brought along Scott Jones, my circulation supervisor, who's really my data and figures guy, and he's going to talk about some of the reports that he has generated to prove and to show and to illustrate how eliminating fines would help the library's environment. Again, it's my pretense that a library should be a free environment in which to gain materials, access literature, and provide information. That's what it was established for. The amount of money that we turn in yearly for fines is $4,100. That's not a big amount to pay or to increase the general fund by simply allowing, if we would eliminate it, we would allow our books to be returned. There's data out there. Chicago Public has a 240% return on materials once their fines were eliminated. There are studies everywhere. Lubbock just went fine-free, and they're having tremendous success with having books returned. So I'm going to turn this over to Scott, and he's going to give you some figures, and we'll be able to answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
So the numbers that I have, I'll admit they're not 100% accurate. There is a difficulty with the reports that we've done. Our new system that we switched to about a year or so ago, there's statistical reports and there's standard reports. The statistical reports will give you how many items got checked out during either a date or a date range. The difficulty is that most material check out for 2 weeks, videos check out for 1 week, and so it's hard to say. If I look up data for the month of January, everything that got circulated, checked out for that month, it's hard to say exactly when those items were billed, because we're not sure if items got renewed or whatnot. And so just overall, if you just take in a year's time, we had 47,860 items checked out between September of 2021 and August of 2022. Items that got returned during that time were 47,367. So the items that were billed were 493, which again, those dates might be off a little bit because of
The reporting parameters, yeah.
but initially it does look like we have about a 98-99% return rate for our items. There was a question about items that were on hold waiting for someone else. If the question was, if someone is waiting for another book and someone's not returning it, I just ran a report today. There's about 2,700 items that are out. We have 50 reserves. 34 of those are for fiction, which there's more than likely a couple copies of that. So that's, I think in the scheme of things, it's a low number, and it's going to be a fast turnaround for those items that are on reserve. The ones that are lost, that are billed, the three highest numbers that we have are easy fiction, juvenile fiction, young adult fiction, or our children's books. Those are the ones that we're having trouble bringing back. And if you've gone through the packet that Margaret sent out, it seems to be the reasoning is that people, once they realize that they're overdue, they're hesitant to bring it back because of they're afraid of the fines. And I don't know if there was any other numbers that you wanted me to look up or
Can I ask a question?
provide.
And it's not about particularly figures, but do the other libraries that don't have the fine, do they wait 6 weeks to actually bill a book?
I'm
Or
not
is
sure.
it
I'm not sure. There's probably a billion library policies.
Over, so it's not
My
a standard?
My daughter-in-law and son live in Zanesville, Ohio, and their library went fine-free January 1. Their books checked out for a week, for 4 weeks. They are billed on the 5th week, first day, if they're
Yeah.
not returned.
Well, I just think, I mean, it looks to me like anybody can read a book in 4 weeks. And so
Think.
my thought was, why wait till the 6th week? I'm in favor of eliminating the fines myself. I mean, everybody I talk to, either they don't use the library, so really, do they really have an opinion as to whether you should or not charge a fine? Because they're not using it either way. And then others say, well, if it's going to keep somebody from going, I don't think you should. But that was my idea, to cut back on like to 4 weeks instead of 6 to bill a book, and then they might return it sooner. You know, if they know they're gonna have to
Talk
pay for
about
it.
that, like maybe, not eliminating fines, but using the circulation, making the circulation length longer, like a 3-week period, give them a week's grace period and bill them on that
Fourth week.
fourth week.
We also, in this new system, we didn't turn it on, but there is an option to automatically renew it. And so those, if you check it out for 2 weeks and no one's waiting for it, it'll all automatically renew it for another 2 weeks. Because there are times where someone has a book out, it's overdue, and they still want to keep it, and so they renew it, which charges an overdue fine at that point. And if they keep it longer, they could get charged again for an overdue charge. And so if we turn on that automatic renewal, it'll only charge them that overdue once at the end.
I have a question. Your percentage of return rate right now is at 98.99%.
Right.
That is very good.
It is very good.
And I admit,
So
that's,
My question
could be
is,
off. Yeah.
we're talking about doing away with approximately $4,100 a year in fines. But we already have a 98.99%.
Right, but if you look at the chart, Commissioner Bryant, you'll notice that the fines, the books that are being fined are children's. The adult book has probably 100% return. The ones that we are missing are the children's books, the easy fiction, and the young adult. Adult books get returned. But you have to know, so in the dynamics of the Clovis-Carver Library world population, I would say more than 60% of our print readers are 50 or older. They have been trained to read their book and bring them back, bring their book and bring them back. The younger generations don't do that. The adults don't read as much. They don't have time to do pleasure reading, but their kids check out books, and that's where the fault lies. And the kids don't read, the kids or their parents aren't being fiscally responsible to get the books returned on time. But the adults return their books.
I mean, I'm all for doing away with the fine on a trial basis to see if that increases that number or increases your children's books.
We can
come back.
also, the way that the patrons are broken down, there's 2 categories. One of them is how many items that they can check out and for how long, and that's based on whether they're local, if they live a little bit farther away. Teachers, we allow them a few extra books so they can check out for their school and for personal. The other way is by ages, and we can, hypothetically, if we want to do away with fines for the juvenile and the young adult patrons, maybe,
Yeah.
and keep the fines for the adults.
So that is possible.
That
That is
an
possible.
option.
There's so many parameters that make up this scenario.
Do any
that
other
it's not like a
libraries-
black and white set in stone.
Do any other libraries do that? Or
There's
they
lots,
just-
yeah, there,
I
I'm,
think there was someone that was talking away.
yeah, there's libraries that take canned foods for fines. There's libraries that have an amnesty day at the end of every month, so everyone brings back their books hurriedly at the end of every month. There's libraries that, that can replace, if a book is billed, they can replace a billed item with 2 comparable items. There's a million different, not a million, but there's numerous scenarios that are taken into effect instead of charging fines.
I have a question.
Okay.
On the books that are billed, let's say they go past their late fee, and you bill for the book, what is your retention on that? Do people pay for the books ultimately? I mean, do you collect that fee?
Well, that's a hard one to answer, Mrs. Farkas. Sometimes we'll set up a payment plan for them, and so they'll bring, $5 here, $5 there. Sometimes we will allow them to bring in comparable items. Sometimes if a book is billed and the patron admits that it is lost, we can say, if you'll go ahead and go buy this same book and bring it to us, we'll waive all your fines. So there's scenarios that take into the.
You don't know, like, what your retention rate is, like, you billed for, 10 books last month. How many of those 10 books
Came back.
actually get paid for?
I don't know.
So,
Yeah.
according to the fiscal year of 21 to 22, when we break it down in our spreadsheet, there was $200 taken in for lost books. And just based on the average price of the books, I would say that's about 10 items returned. But that's usually when someone's coming in to pay for a complete book. If someone's coming in and just putting down like $2 or $5 here and there, that usually gets put into the fines, which is substantially higher than that, but.
So essentially, when you bill an individual for a book that was never returned, they're really not paying, they don't pay for the book. Am I correct on that?
Very
or-
few, it
Very
seems so,
few,
yeah.
okay.
But then they can't use the library?
They can use the library, but they have some restrictions.
Oh, okay.
Like we have so if they want to use our computers, they have to pay $1 every time they use the computers.
Oh, okay.
They will have a limited checkout number of books they can check out. It kind of depends on the situation at hand. Does that make sense?
We used to have a limit for the household if it was over $5. With our system, it made it easier to do a $5 per person. But then when we changed to the new system, we increased it to $25 total for the household. And so if anyone, individuals, or if they have $5 or 5 people in the same household, anybody that's over $25 for the household gets put as a limited account where they can only check out 3 items. Because again, the push is to still allow them to check out. And so we're saying if you're over that $25, we're going to limit you to 3 items at the moment.
You're saying if they owe you $25?
Or more. Mhm.
Okay.
I have a question. So, my first question is, Commissioner Bryant mentioned wanting to do this for a temporary period, but is that an option because this only comes around every 2 years?
Well, and, Mr. Chairman, and, Member Paula, so I put a little bit of thought into this, and as being the one that gets to oversee the budget, and when we talk about a $4,100 decrease, while we say that's a small number, it still has to come out of the general fund to make that up. What I would propose, and I think we're fortunate potentially in this situation, is the fact that last year we worked out a deal with the Carver estate to where they are now, they have a trust fund that helps support our library. And so they are now, previously we had to go and make requests to that state. Citizens Bank is now looking over that trust fund. And so the deal that we've made with them is that they're just going to grant us $60,000 every year to purchase items towards the library. And so instead of us replacing that potential $4,100, $5,000 from our general fund, if you also choose to move forward with the waiving all fines, I would recommend that we decrease our book budget by that $5,000, which then can be made up for within that allotment by the Carver estate and the Carver Trust.
So that was my next question. I was going to ask what the plan is for making up the $4,600 difference in the budget.
That's what I would recommend doing.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What was the library receiving from the Carver Trust prior to?
Nothing.
We had to go and request.
Okay.
So when the actual keepers of the trust,
Trustee.
trustees, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. we would have to make an annual request to them, and it would take some time.
Okay.
And the trustees just got to a point where they no longer wanted to manage it. And so Citizens Bank has taken over the management of it. And in working with Ms. Anaya at the bank, she provided us a letter that said, hey, we're willing just to give you guys $60,000 every year out of the trust.
Okay, hold on, I got one more, 2 more points to make. So Margaret, I actually think you made a point for keeping fines when you said that the adults are very good about returning their books because they've been trained over the years to return their stuff.
Right, you're right, Megan, I probably said that, yeah.
And I think that I would like, and I do fully believe that the library is free. You guys bend over backwards for your customers. I think you guys do a wonderful job, and I would like to train the youth and the next generation to be, I can't think of the word.
Responsible.
Thank you, for, borrowing the books and returning them so that when they become adults, they understand that when they borrow something, they have to return it.
Right, so Vicki, can you cross that statement out from what I said?
And then the other, I would like to see more amnesty days. And I fully understand why there's so many youth books out, because I have been that parent and taking my 4 kids to the library, and we check out 40 books and 2 end up under a bed, and I find them 2 months later when I vacuum under there. So with those amnesty days, parents like me who go, oh my gosh, I don't want to go pay this, I can show up with my books and go, here you go. And I think you would get some wonderful returns, but still you're training people and teaching people to be responsible. That's my...
Right, and I agree with you, Commissioner Paula, wholeheartedly. I think when I said trained, I think we're looking at a generational thing. I think people that are over 50 know it has been ingrained in them that they are going to check out these books and they're going to return them. I think young adults now that have, they're millennials and they have 2 or 3 kids, their lives are so busy, or they're at the poverty level in living. They can't get their books back in time, or they don't. And I think this shows that our young adult, our YA and our easy fiction are the books that are not being brought back. And it's because that different generation, I don't know, they have a different, they choose different ways to use their responsibilities wisely.
Another thing Megan mentioned too is she said that she didn't want to take the book back and pay the fine. The kids are not paying the fine. The
True.
parents are.
True.
And so are you really training them to bring it back by you paying the fine for them? We need to train them, yes, but there is that.
That's the only way we can train the parent to train the kid, though. That's the only thing we have.
So, I'd just like to make a couple points. We have the data, and I read through a significant amount of it, and it shows that if we eliminate the fines, we increase the usage of the library, and we also increase the percentage of people that bring back their books. The data's there, and I'd also like to point out that I don't think it's going to be a $4,100 loss, because we increase the rental fee of the room, and she's got the data in here that shows that potential increase of $1,675 in revenue. So we're down to $2,425 that we're talking about to try to make up in that $4,100. But if you've read through the data at all, there's a lot out there that says that we increase the usage of the library, and we also get greater return on the books.
And now you've got Carver Trust.
And we have Carver Trust, which we didn't have before.
Chairman Jones? I have
Yes.
a couple of comments I'd
Can I
like to
make
make.
a few points?
Oh, go ahead. Let him go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Isaac.
So I read through the report as well. And on, I think it was page 9 or 10, it said itself that it is skewed towards favorable outcomes because the data that's reported was volunteered. So there is some selection bias there. However, I couldn't really find too many examples of counterpoints that's current And I also think that equitable access to learning is probably more important than making sure that we have expedient returns. A separate, actually, the report itself also suggested automatic renewals when there are no other patron holds existing to help with completely, with the fines. But a separate report that I read suggested a model that has worked for some other libraries, and I thought it sounded reasonable. It said that for books that are, for example, more than 4 weeks past due, that have not had a renewal or automatic renewal, it should be marked as lost automatically, and then a partially non-refundable fee is assessed rather than a fine, but the majority of that fee would be refundable if the book ends up being returned at a later date. So I thought that sounded reasonable, so we still have accountability for the property of the library to the city. But I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that.
So I'll answer. There's an option for a processing fee. In our previous system, we were charging $5, and there was an item cost, there was an overdue charge, and a processing fee. If a book got returned, it would automatically waive the item cost and the processing fee. In this new system, what it does is it charges for the book, and at that point, it charges an item cost and the processing fee. If it gets returned, it waives the item cost and charges that overdue fee. Right now, the processing fee, there's not a way for it to be automatically waived in our new system. And so I was manually going through and waiving those for a few months, and then we decided we're just going to do away with it. And so if we do a processing fee, just know that it's not going to be an automatic waive.
Paul?
Thank you, sir. The irony is not lost on me that we've agreed that at the library, people should pay a higher deposit to make sure they take care of a room that we let them rent. But now we're wanting to do away with responsibility for this. Also, we just said that we want to expect responsibility from our citizens, so we're going to raise traffic fines because of this. But now we're talking about doing away with the one thing that gives responsibility to the people who check out books from the library. I, like Ms. Farrell, I spoke to over 30 people. I tried my best to find one person who said do away with fines. I could not find one. I spoke to single mothers who I know. I spoke to lots of different people from different backgrounds trying to find one person. And everybody's like, one person said, today, I returned books to the library that my son checked out 2 months ago and paid the late fee. So, and she's like, I've got to be able to, teach my son the responsibility that those books were due. And we have to do that. So I think it's something that's been existed. I think Commissioner Bryant said it last meeting. It's existed since the dawn of time. I grew up with it. We all grew up with it. It's not something, and I'm sorry, Margaret, I've read all the data too. I agree with what Isaac said. It does talk about, it has a selection bias. I can't support it. So that's my statement.
Any other discussion?
I think my only concern is, and I think it's covered, is I don't want to see any revenue loss at all, and it looks like that's covered through, what was it,
The grant?
Carver Trust.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be an interesting experiment. And we do obviously have the ability that if it turns out that it's not what we think it is, that we can come back and make that change. I believe that's our possibility.
And just for clarification, The Revenue Review Committee meets every 2 years, and that's by ordinance that we have to do that. At any particular time within 2 years, our departments are certainly more than welcome to come and request fees and changes to our structures. And so if this did not work out, it's something that the library board could consider and make a recommendation on to the city commission. If
I would like to see if this actually does increase the return rate, because right now it's at 99%. We're only talking 1%. Doing away fines for 1% of return. So I'm all for it if you can come back and show that we got 100% return. Do you think that's possible?
How close to 100%?
Yeah.
Rounding.
And
What-
this 98,
Half of it.
it might not be correct either.
Yeah, it might not be,
Yeah.
but
Well, I'd
that's
also
a
be
really
interested
great
in,
return
does
rate.
it increase the usage, right?
Usage,
That's another point,
Right.
is
Yeah,
do we
increases
have more
Right.
circulation, if we decide to do this?
So I'm all for a trial basis of it, just to see if what we're talking about actually happens.
And-
then we can look at it and change it back if we need to, or later.
And the only other point I'd add, and I know as part of the discussion, we did talk about, yes, we are increasing the rates to rent the room in the Ingram room. But that increase, I assure you, does not offset our overtime costs or our energy costs that have gone up over the years. So I wouldn't use that number as an offset to that $4,100.
Chairman Jones? And Commissioner Porter, I would disagree with your assessment that it's not a revenue loss. Because with the $60,000 from the Carver estate and the $4,100 in fines, you have $64,100. If you do away with this, you still lose that $4,000. It's not like the Carver estate's giving us extra money to cover that.
And that is correct, because we're not going to offset out of the general fund back to the budget to make that $4,100. So our book budget right now is about $106,000, which includes the Carver estate number. So that's going to go down to, $100,000.
So I'm going to back up just a little bit. I missed out, and we may not be able to do anything about this, but it seems to me that based on the discussion that we had initially on
2 weeks ago, on October 12th,
on notary costs,
on notary.
and that the committee voted to not have any, to leave that at zero, I feel like we left a whole lot of money there, and I don't know if that can be reopened, and used, and then that would probably make me feel a little bit better about, I would feel better if we had a notary income, which is reasonable and then, I think that helps, or at least makes me feel better about having an offset or a loss on the fines that is not or recoverable otherwise. Is that something that we can rediscuss, or is that something we can reopen?
There was a motion and a recommendation on that item already. It's not currently on the agenda. If that would be something that you would like to reconsider, we could certainly put that back on the agenda, but we'd have to call another meeting from an advertisement standpoint.
I would support that.
If I recall, I seem to believe that the amount that we might have risen from that was almost exactly equal to what the overdue fees were. I remember thinking about that.
If I could just interject, when we discussed the notary, and I was very green and not really knowing what was going on, but I'd put some rough numbers to that. And according to my figures, even at the lowest amount, $5 per notary, based on $300 a month, and it was said that it was anywhere from $300 to $500 a month. If that's the case, that's $18,000 a year, and that's a big difference, in my opinion. I felt like we left a lot of money on the table too. That if it was the fact that it was 300 notaries at $5, that's $1,500 a month. Times 12 months is $18,000. That would more than pay for the difference of the fees. As a business person, that's kind of a no-brainer for me. I mean, I had discussed that with Jean, because when we had discussed it last time, I wasn't really sure, you know, where I needed to go on that, but as far as the income based upon the notary, that would more than cover any kind of fees, late fees. The notary fees would cover that and then some.
Even if it was $1.
Huh? Yeah, even if it was $1,
$1.
exactly. You could even charge $3 or $1 for the notary fee and make up your, you know.
Does the notary fee go into the library? Does it go direct to the library, or is it a different fund?
So currently, the places that do notaries is our library, and they do a majority of them. We also do them at City Hall. Vicki has her notary, Claire has hers. Over in finance, they have notaries. And so what we would do, and what I would propose to do, is that any notaries that were done here at the library, they would stay within the designated library funds versus those that were potentially done at City Hall or elsewhere.
So are we wanting to potentially reopen that? And if we do that, would we not want to also table this until we make a decision on the notary?
So, since this is the item that we're talking about now, I'll make a motion to table the waiver of library fines until the next meeting of the Revenue Review Committee.
Okay. I have a motion to table the fines for overdue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, we have to table it, why? Because,
We don't want to approve it until we,
well, no, I know, but I thought Mr. Howalt said that we have to, because it wasn't on the agenda, but the agenda's.
No. We're tabling this one because we are potentially going to reopen the notary, which,
That's what I mean, it's the
Yeah.
notary, I'm sorry, not
Yeah.
tabling this discussion.
Correct. So if you wanted to take action on this and then for a future agenda item, it depends on, I guess it depends on if one influences the other. And so if you wanted to take action on this, thinking that you're going to definitely approve a fee for notary charges, that, I mean, I guess that's your decision. But if one weighs on the other, you may want to hear both items at the same time, because if you pass this to do away with the fines, and then at a future meeting, we have the notary fees on there, and then we don't pass that too, but that was going to be the consideration for passing the doing away with the fines, you could potentially put
But I
yourself
guess my
in a
question
bind.
is, we're not allowed to go back and discuss the notary fees tonight.
Because it wasn't on the agenda, correct?
But the
is
agenda's
in
so
that.
vague anyway. It just says discussion and action
but
regarding
we
revenue
had already
recommendations.
approved the notary in a previous meeting.
Yeah.
What about for the good of the order?
Well, it's going to have to be an action item.
Okay.
That's
I won't
my
argue.
conservative approach to, because last time at the end of the meeting, we said we're going to hear these two items, even though the agenda is broad. These were the reasons that we were having this meeting this evening.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I don't have a problem with readdressing it. I think the concern for me then was that the taxpayers are paying the notary and their all of their expenses of getting trained and their equipments and what have you. So, but a small fee, I don't see a problem with it.
All right, so I have a motion and a second to table our current discussion on the eliminating the library fees. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
All those opposed, say aye. All righty, so we will table this until the next meeting. We'll determine that shortly. And now do we need a motion or just can we place it on the agenda to reopen the,
We will. We'll put it on the agenda. But the next agenda will be specific to the notaries as well as the library fines.
okay, perfect. So,
We need a
we need
date.
to figure out a date and time.
And remember, we can use the whole calendar.
Working on it.
Not just Mondays. Or Wednesdays.
Do Wednesdays work? Hey, Isaac, when do you get back?
Not till after the 9th.
Okay, we don't want to wait that long.
So next Monday evening is the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. I would recommend next Wednesday.
The 19th?
Yes, sir.
I won't be able to on that date.
Nope.
I'm not sure when.
Okay.
And I guess then the other question is, do y'all have does it have to be after 5 o'clock? Can people make during the day meetings just to open up the full calendar? Whatever.
Mornings are great for me.
Mornings are great for me too.
Anytime.
I'm good with
At
mornings
the
as
moment,
well.
for me,
Yeah, it won't
not
work
enough
for
this
Isaac,
weekend.
because he's gonna be in school.
Okay.
So we need to keep it in the evenings.
I can't any next week, I know.
Any next week? How about the,
24th?
yeah, 24th, I'll be, I got a board meeting as well. 25th?
I'm going to let you know I'm going to be selfish and let you know that my daughter's senior season of volleyball is this year. And so there's the neighborhood meeting that I'm not going to be attending because I'm going to be in Carlsbad on the 25th,
Gotcha.
Tuesdays and
A 7
Thursdays.
a.m. meeting.
Yeah,
Well, Isaac can't make the 7
Oh, okay.
a.m.
I didn't know if that was before you started your day.
26th?
It's at 8 a.m. in the time zone I'm.
26th?
26th is wide open.
Wednesday, 26th at 5:30?
No, at 5:30.
Is that good for everybody? All right, so our next scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, the 26th at 5:30. Anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.